The ice drilling machine stopped working at exactly 3:47 in the morning, Europa time. Jake Mitchell was drinking his fourth cup of coffee when the emergency alarm started screaming through the mining station. The sound made everyone jump, even though they had heard it 100 times during safety drills. "What now?" Jake muttered, putting down his cup. He was tired of this place. Europa was cold, dark, and boring. The only good thing about being here was the pay. Earth needed the rare metals buried under Europa's ice, and they paid well for people willing to work on Jupiter's frozen moon. Amanda Brooks was already running toward the drilling site when Jake caught up with her. She was a science officer, always excited about something new. Her blonde hair was messy from sleep, and she was still putting on her jacket as she ran. "The drill hit something," she said, breathing hard. "Something big. The sensors are going crazy." They reached the drilling platform just as the night shift supervisor, Pete Johnson, was climbing out a control booth. His face was pale, and his hands were shaking. "I've never seen anything like it," Pete said. "We were drilling through normal ice. Then suddenly the drill just stopped. The metal is fine, but it won't go any deeper. It's like we hit solid rock, but the scans show empty space below." Amanda grabbed a scanner and pointed it down the hole. Her eyes went wide as she read the display. "This can't be right. There's a huge hollow area down there. And the walls, they're not made of rock or ice. They're made of something artificial." Jake looked over her shoulder at the scanner. The image showed a massive circular structure buried deep in the ice. It was perfectly round, like a giant ring standing upright. The material was unlike anything he had ever seen. "How big is it?" he asked. "About 200 meters across," Amanda said. "And Jake, this thing is old, really old. The ice around it has been frozen for thousands of years." Word spread quickly through the mining station. By morning, everyone was talking about the discovery. The station commander, Lisa Harper, sent an emergency message to Earth. Within hours, orders came back. Stop all mining operations and wait for science team. The science team arrived 3 days later on the fastest ship Earth could send. Dr. Alex Turner led the group, along with 6 other specialists. They immediately began melting the ice around the strange structure. As more ice melted away, the full size of the object became clear. It was enormous, made of a blue-green crystal material that seemed to glow with its own light. Strange symbols covered its surface, arranged in patterns that hurt the eyes to look at for too long. "It's definitely not human," Amanda told Dr. Turner, as they stood looking at the partially uncovered ring. "The symbols don't match any language we know, and the material, our best tools can't even scratch it." Dr. Turner nodded, making notes on his tablet. "How old do you think it is?" "The ice analysis suggests it's been here for at least 10,000 years, maybe more. But the structure itself could be much older than that." Jake was working with the excavation team when it happened. They had just finished clearing the ice from the base of the ring when the symbols started glowing brighter. At first, nobody noticed. Then the humming sound began. It was soft at first, like the sound of distant music, but it grew louder and deeper until everyone could feel it in their bones. The ring began to vibrate, and the air inside the circle started to shimmer like heat waves. "Everyone back." Lisa Harper shouted, "Move away from the ring." But it was too late. The space inside the ring exploded with blue light, so bright that everyone had to cover their eyes. When the light faded, the air inside the ring looked different. Instead of seeing the ice wall on the other side, they could see stars. Amanda was the first to understand what they were looking at. "It's not just a ring," she whispered. "It's a doorway." The stars on the other side were not the stars they could see in Europa's sky. They were different colors, arranged in patterns that no Earth astronomer had ever mapped. And they were moving, as if the doorway was looking at a place very far away. Dr. Turner immediately ordered everyone to stay away from the ring while they studied it. They set up cameras and sensors all around the structure. The readings were incredible. The ring was generating energy patterns that Earth science could barely measure. It was like looking at technology that was hundreds or thousands of years ahead of anything humans had built. For 3 days, they studied the ring. They learned that the symbols on its surface were some kind of control system. When Amanda touched certain combinations of symbols, the view through the ring changed. Sometimes they saw empty space filled with strange nebulae. Other times they saw planets with colors that didn't exist in Earth's solar system. On the fourth day, something changed. The ring's humming grew louder, and all their instruments began detecting new signals. Radio waves, energy patterns, and other transmissions were coming to the ring from the other side. "Someone knows we're here," Amanda said, looking at the data. "These signals, they're artificial. There's intelligence behind them." Jake was on duty that night when the first ship appeared. It came through the ring without warning, a sleek silver vessel about the size of a small Earth cruiser. It hovered in the air above the ring for several minutes, scanning the mining station with beams of green light. Then it flew away, disappearing to the ring again. But Jake knew they would be back, and they would probably bring friends. He was right. Over the next 2 days, more ships came through the ring. Different shapes, different sizes, but all clearly built by non-human intelligence. They never stayed long, but they always scanned everything before leaving. Lisa Harper sent urgent messages to Earth, requesting military support. The response came quickly. A fleet of Earth's best warships was already on the way. But everyone at the mining station knew they would take weeks to arrive. Meanwhile, the alien ships kept coming, and each time there were more of them. Amanda spent her time trying to understand the ring's controls. She had figured out how to change the destination, but she couldn't turn it off. It was as if the ancient builders had designed it to stay active once someone found it. "I think this is just the beginning," she told Jake as they watched another alien ship disappear through the ring. "I think we just opened a door that's been closed for a very long time, and everyone in the galaxy knows it." Jake nodded, watching the stars that weren't their stars through the ring. He had a feeling their quiet mining operation was about to become the center of something much bigger than anyone could imagine. The first alien fleet arrived on a Tuesday morning, Europa time. Lisa Harper was eating breakfast when the long-range sensors started screaming. She ran to the control room, still holding her coffee cup. "What do we have?" she asked the sensor operator, a young man named Danny Walsh. "3 large ships, ma'am. They just appeared at the edge of the solar system. They're not using any propulsion we recognize, but they're heading straight for us." Lisa looked at the sensor display. The ships were huge, each one the size of a small city. Their design was unlike anything humans had ever built. They looked organic, like they had been grown rather than constructed. "How long until they reach us?" she asked. "At their current speed, about 6 hours. Lisa immediately sent an emergency message to Earth, then called all station personnel to battle stations. It wasn't much of a battle station. The mining facility had been built for digging ice, not fighting wars. They had exactly 2 small defensive weapons and a handful of maintenance shuttles. The alien ships slowed down as they approached Europa. They took positions around the moon, far enough away to avoid any weapons the humans might have, but close enough to make their presence very threatening. For 2 hours, nothing happened. Then the second fleet arrived. These ships were different. They were dark gray and angular, covered with weapon ports and armor plating. Everything about them said military. They took positions on the opposite side of Europa from the first fleet. "This is getting complicated," Jake Mitchell said as he watched the display screens. He had been assigned to help with communications, though nobody was sure what they would say to the aliens if they tried to talk. The third fleet arrived just as the Earth ships finally showed up. These new aliens brought the strangest ships of all. They looked like they were made of metal and glass, but they seemed to shift and change shape as you watched them. And there were dozens of them, small, fast ships that moved like a swarm of insects. Captain Ben Hayes commanded the Earth fleet. He had 6 destroyers and 2 cruisers, the best ships Earth could spare on short notice. Against 3 alien fleets, it wasn't much, but it was something. Captain Hayes opened a communication channel to all the alien fleets. "This is Captain Ben Hayes of the United Earth Space Force. You are in the territory of Earth. State your intentions." The first response came from the organic-looking ships. The voice that came through the speakers was strange, like multiple people talking at once, but with a musical quality that was almost hypnotic. "We are the Zephyrians. We claim ancient rights to the Gate of Passages. Your species found what was never lost, only sleeping. We have come to reclaim what belongs to us. The second voice was harsh and aggressive, clearly from the military ships. I am Fleet Commander Korax of the Karathi Empire. By the laws of expansion and conquest, this gate falls under our territorial authority. The human species will surrender control immediately or face the consequences. The third voice was cold and mechanical, multiple speakers talking in perfect unison. We are the Nexus Collective. Our technological superiority grants us priority access to all ancient artifacts. Human cooperation in this matter will be noted and rewarded. Resistance will be processed accordingly. Amanda Brooks was in the laboratory, still studying the gate, when the transmissions came through. She looked up at Jake, who had come to get her for an emergency meeting. "Did you hear all that?" she asked. "Yeah, they all want our gate, and none of them seem to care what we think about it." "The interesting thing," Amanda said, "is that they all know what it is. They called it the Gate of Passages. They've seen this technology before." In the command center, Lisa Harper was trying to make sense of the situation. 3 alien fleets, each with enough firepower to destroy her entire facility, were arguing over who got control of the gate. The Earth fleet was badly outnumbered, but Captain Hayes was doing his best to look confident. "Captain Harper," Hayes said over the communication link, "what's your assessment of the situation?" "We're stuck in the middle of an alien territorial dispute," Lisa replied, "and I don't think any of them plan to ask our opinion." Dr. Turner, who had been quiet during most of the communications, spoke up. "Captain Hayes, I recommend we request a formal meeting. If these species have dealt with this technology before, they might know things we need to learn." Hayes considered this. "All right, I'll send a message to all 3 fleets." The response was immediate. All 3 alien fleets agreed to a meeting, but they had conditions. The Zephyrians wanted the meeting on their flagship. The Korathi insisted on a neutral location. The Nexus Collective demanded that all parties submit to scanning and analysis before any discussions. Finally, they agreed to meet on the largest Zephyrian ship. Lisa Harper, Dr. Turner, and Amanda Brooks would represent humanity. Captain Hayes would remain with his fleet, ready to fight if the meeting went badly. The Zephyrian ship was incredible inside. The walls seemed to be alive, pulsing with soft light. The corridors were grown rather than built, and everything was organic curves instead of straight lines. Strange plants grew from the ceiling, and the air smelled like flowers. The meeting room was a large dome with a transparent floor that showed the stars below. Representatives from all 3 alien species were waiting. The Zephyrian was tall and thin, with 4 arms and skin that looked like tree bark. Its eyes were large and silver, and it moved like a dancer. The Korathi looked like a cross between a lizard and a human, with scales, sharp teeth, and predator eyes. The Nexus representative was the most disturbing. It looked almost human, but covered with mechanical implants and glowing circuit patterns. "Humans," the Zephyrian said in its musical voice, "you have awakened something that has slept for millennia. The Gate of Passages was built by our ancestors, long before your species learned to make fire." The Korathi leaned forward aggressively. "The gate belongs to whoever can take it and hold it. Your species is young and weak. You cannot defend what you have found." The Nexus representative spoke, without moving its lips, the voice coming from speakers implanted in its throat. "The human species shows promise, but lacks the technological sophistication to properly utilize ancient artifacts. We offer partnership in exchange for access rights." Dr. Turner spoke carefully. "We appreciate your interest in our discovery, but this gate was found in our solar system, on our moon. By any reasonable law, it belongs to Earth." All 3 aliens made sounds that might have been laughter, but not the kind that indicated amusement. "Young species always think in terms of ownership," the Zephyrian said sadly. "You do not understand the greater currents that flow through the galaxy. Ownership is taken by strength," the Korathi growled. "Your species has no strength. Ownership is an inefficient concept," the Nexus representative stated. "Resources should be allocated based on optimal utilization parameters." The meeting went on for hours. The aliens talked about ancient laws, territorial rights, and technological superiority. They discussed treaties between species that humans had never heard of and referenced historical events that happened before human civilization began. But through it all, one thing became clear. None of them considered humanity to have any real claim to the gate. They were willing to discuss terms, negotiate agreements, and even offer small benefits to humans in exchange for cooperation. But the basic assumption was that humans would hand over control of the gate to one of the three species. Amanda noticed something else during the meeting. The aliens kept referring to humans as the Finders or the Awakeners. They never used the word Builders or suggested that humans might have any connection to the original creators of the gate. When the meeting ended, the three alien species announced their decision. They will hold a formal tribunal to determine which of them had the strongest claim to the gate. Humans could attend as observers, but would have no vote in the final decision. Lisa Harper felt her anger rising as they returned to the human shuttle. Observers? In a decision about our own discovery. It gets worse, Dr. Turner said quietly. Did you notice the part about keeping humans confined to Earth? No matter which species wins, they plan to make sure we never leave our solar system again. Amanda was looking out the shuttle window at the alien fleets surrounding Europa. They think we're just lucky primitives who stumbled onto something beyond our understanding, she said. They have no idea what they're dealing with. Jake, who had been quiet during the trip back, finally spoke. So what we do now? Lisa Harper's expression was grim as she watched the alien ships positioning themselves around their moon. Now we find out that humanity is as helpless as they think we are. The tribunal began 3 days later aboard the largest Zephyrian vessel. The ship was called the Growing Light, and it was more like a floating forest than anything humans would recognize as a spacecraft. Trees grew from the floor and walls, their leaves providing soft illumination throughout the corridors. Amanda Brooks walked through the organic hallways alongside Dr. Turner and Lisa Harper, still amazed by the alien architecture. Everything curved and flowed like living tissue. The air was warm and humid, filled with the scent of growing things. Remember, Dr. Turner said quietly as they approached the tribunal chamber, we're only here as observers. Don't say anything unless they specifically ask us a question. The chamber itself was enormous, shaped like a natural amphitheater carved from living wood. Representatives from all three alien species sat in elevated sections around the room. The humans were given a small platform near the bottom, where everyone could see them, but their position made it clear they were not equal participants. The Zephyrian tribunal leader was ancient even by their standards, her bark-like skin marked with patterns that indicated centuries of life. She spoke in the musical tones characteristic of her species, but her voice carried an authority that made everyone listen. We gather to resolve the question of the Gate of Passages, awakened by the young species called humans. 3 legitimate claimants have presented themselves, each with rights recognized under the ancient laws. The Karathi representative stood first. He was larger than the one they had met before, with scars covering his scaled skin and teeth filed to sharp points. I am War Leader Grax of the Karathi Empire. Our claim is simple and absolute. We are the strongest military power in this sector of the galaxy. Strength determines ownership. We will take the gate and defend it with our fleets. He activated a holographic display that showed Karathi military might. Hundreds of warships conquered worlds, defeated enemies. The message was clear. They had the power to take what they wanted. Furthermore, Grax continued, the humans are clearly too primitive to be allowed access to interstellar travel. Left unchecked, they will spread their violent nature throughout the galaxy. For the safety of all civilized species, they must be contained within their birth system. Several Karathi warriors around the chamber roared their approval, a sound that made the humans unconsciously step closer together. Next came the Nexus Collective representative. This one was more extensively modified than the previous one, with so many technological implants that it was difficult to tell what the original species had looked like. When it spoke, the voice came from multiple sources simultaneously. We are processing Unit 7742 of the Nexus Collective. Our claim is based on technological supremacy and efficient resource utilization. We have analyzed the gate technology and determined that proper operation requires computational capabilities beyond those of organic species. The holographic display showed Nexus achievements, massive computer networks, perfectly organized worlds, and technology that seemed to blur the line between organic and artificial life. The human species shows potential for integration into our collective consciousness. The unit continued. We offer them a choice: voluntary assimilation into our network, where their limited capabilities will be enhanced, or isolation within their system while we assume control of the gate. The mechanical precision of the offer somehow made it more frightening than the Korathi threats. Finally, the Zephyrian speaker rose. She was graceful in a way that only her species could be, moving like a tree swaying in a gentle breeze. Her 4 arms gestured expressively as she spoke. I am Elder Song of Distant Stars, keeper of the old memories. Our claim reaches back to the time of the First Awakening, when our ancestors walked between worlds alongside the architects who built the gates. The Zephyrian display was different from the others. Instead of showing military power or technology, it showed history, ancient star maps, records of gate networks that span the galaxy, and images of species long extinct. The humans have awakened something they do not understand, Elder Song continued. The Gate of Passages is not merely a transportation device. It is a living system, responsive to the deepest currents of life and consciousness. Only we retain the knowledge to commune with it properly. She paused, her silver eyes focusing on the human representatives. The human species is young, but shows promise. Under our guidance, they may eventually learn wisdom. Until that time, they should remain in their birth system, protected from the dangers they are not ready to face. For hours, the 3 species presented evidence, cited ancient laws, and argued their positions. The humans listened in growing anger and frustration, as their fate was decided without their input. Dr. Turner made notes on everything he heard, but Amanda noticed that he was also using his tablet to scan the alien technology around them. Lisa Harper stood perfectly still, but Amanda could see the tension in her shoulders increasing as the debate continued. The tribunal reached its conclusion just as the humans were beginning to wonder if they would be trapped in this chamber forever. Elder Song of Distant Stars spoke for the assembled judges. After careful consideration of all claims and evidence, this tribunal reaches the following decision. The Gate of Passages shall be administered jointly by the 3 claimant species. The Korathi Empire will provide military security. The Nexus Collective will manage technical operations, and the Zephyrian Council will maintain diplomatic oversight. She turned toward the human platform. The human species, having served as awakeners of the Gate, will be granted observer status in all future discussions of Gate policy. They will be permitted to maintain their current presence on the moon Europa, but are forbidden from using the Gate or expanding beyond their birth system without unanimous approval from the 3 administering powers. War Leader Grax bared his teeth in what might have been a smile. The humans will remain in their cage where they belong. Processing Unit 7742's mechanical voice showed no emotion. This solution provides optimal resource allocation while minimizing system disruption. Elder Song looked genuinely sad as she delivered the final terms. This decision is made for protection of all species, including humanity. The young race will have time to grow in wisdom before facing the challenges of the greater galaxy. Amanda felt something hot and angry rising in her chest. She looked at Dr. Turner and Lisa Harper and saw the same emotion reflected in their faces. They had discovered the gate. They had activated it, and now they were being told they couldn't use it. Dr. Turner stood slowly. Elder Song of Distant Stars, may I ask a question? The Zephyrian nodded gracefully. The Awakener species may speak. You mentioned the architects who built the gates. What happened to them? A strange silence fell over the chamber. The 3 alien species exchanged glances that suggested this was not a topic they discussed often. The architects vanished long ago, Elder Song finally said. They left behind their great works, but took their knowledge with them into the dark between stars. Do you know why they disappeared? Another uncomfortable pause. War Leader Grax spoke this time, his voice unusually quiet. There are stories. Legends say they grew tired of watching younger species fight over their gifts. Some believe they retreated to distant galaxies. Others think they transcended physical existence entirely. Amanda noticed something in their body language, the way they avoided looking directly at the humans when discussing the architects. There was something they weren't saying. And the gates themselves? Dr. Turner continued. How many still exist? Processing Unit 7742 answered this time. Current estimates suggest approximately 14,000 functional gates remain throughout this galaxy. Many more are believed to be dormant or damaged. That's a lot of transportation networks. Dr. Turner observed. I imagine controlling even one gate provides significant strategic advantages. The aliens clearly didn't like where this conversation was going. Elder Song raised one of her hands. These questions are academic for your species. The tribunal has made its decision. You will return to your world and accept the judgment we have rendered. Lisa Harper stepped forward. And if we refuse? The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop several degrees. War Leader Grax rose to his full impressive height. Refuse? You have 6 small warships and a mining station. We have 3 fleets and weapons that could turn your homeworld to ash. What exactly would you refuse with? Amanda saw Lisa Harper's jaw clench, but the human captain kept her voice level. We refuse to accept that other species can decide our future without our consent. Elder Song's expression was pained. Captain Harper, please understand. This decision protects your species from threats you cannot imagine. There are things in the galaxy that would destroy humanity without a second thought. We offer you safety. A cage, Lisa replied flatly. You're offering us a cage. The tribunal session ended with the 3 alien species reaffirming their decision. The humans were escorted back to their shuttle under what could only be described as guard duty. As they flew back toward Europa, none of them spoke until the important question. If humanity really is as primitive as they claim, why are they all so afraid of letting us use that gate? The emergency session of the United Earth Council was called for 6 a.m. Geneva time. President Karen Walsh had been awakened at 3 a.m. with news from Europa, and she had spent the following hours reviewing the tribunal recordings and consulting with her advisors. The council chamber was packed. Representatives from every nation sat in tense silence as President Walsh stood at the central podium. The large display screen behind her showed images of the 3 alien fleets surrounding Europa. Ladies and gentlemen, President Walsh began, we face a situation unlike anything in human history. 3 alien civilizations have claimed control over a discovery made in our own solar system, and they have forbidden humanity from expanding beyond Earth. She paused, letting the full weight of that statement settle over the room. They have offered us what they call observer status in decisions about our own discovery. They promise to protect us by keeping us confined to our birth system. The Brazilian representative, Maria Santos, was the first to speak. Madam President, what are our military options? Can our fleet challenge their decision? General Ryan Scott, commander of Earth's military forces, stood to answer. Our analysis indicates we are severely outgunned. Each of the 3 alien fleets could destroy our entire navy without significant losses. Combined, they represent overwhelming superiority in both numbers and technology. So we surrender? The question came from a Japanese representative, his voice sharp with frustration. We do not surrender, President Walsh said firmly, but we must be smart about how we respond. Dr. Turner, who had returned from Europa just hours earlier, activated his presentation. During our time aboard the alien ships, we were able to gather significant intelligence. The aliens refer to the gate builders as architects, and admit that thousands of similar gates exist throughout the galaxy. The display showed scans and recordings from the tribunal. More importantly, their behavior suggests they know more about humanity's connection to this technology than they're admitting. Notice how they avoid discussing the architect's disappearance, and how quickly they want to confine us. Amanda Brooks, participating via video link from Europa, added her analysis. I've been studying the gate's control systems since we found it. The technology responds to human neural patterns in ways that surprised even me. It's almost like it was designed for us. She manipulated the display to show detailed scans of the gate's structure. I've identified what I believe are dormant subroutines in the gate's programming. If I'm right, activating them would give us access to functions the aliens don't know exist. President Walsh leaned forward with interest. What kind of functions? Stealth protocols, defensive systems, and most importantly, the ability to activate other gates in the network. The aliens think they're controlling one transportation hub. They don't realize they're sitting on top of a control node. The room erupted in excited conversation. General Scott raised his hand for quiet. Dr. Brooks, are you suggesting we could access other gates without going to the one at Europa? I'm suggesting something much more significant than that, Amanda replied. I think we could turn the entire gate network into a weapon. President Walsh looked around the room at the faces of world leaders who had suddenly realized their species might not be as helpless as they had thought. Dr. Brooks, how long would you need to test your theories? Give me 2 weeks with a team of volunteers, and I'll know what we're capable of. The Chinese representative, Lu Wei, raised a concern. The aliens will be monitoring our activities. How do we conduct this research without revealing what we're doing? Commander Jake Mitchell, also participating from Europa, answered that question. The aliens are arrogant. They've positioned their fleets to watch our ships and communications, but they're not paying attention to normal mining operations. We can disguise research as routine maintenance work. President Walsh made her decision quickly. Dr. Brooks, you have your 2 weeks. General Scott, I want contingency plans for every scenario, including the possibility that the aliens discover what we're doing before we're ready. And if they do discover us, asked the German representative, then we find out whether humanity deserves its place among the stars. President Walsh replied. Back on Europa, Amanda assembled her research team in the deepest part of the mining complex, as far from alien sensors as possible. The team included Jake Mitchell, Pete Johnson, Danny Walsh, and 6 other specialists who had volunteered for what everyone understood was an extremely dangerous assignment. The gate loomed above them as they worked, its blue-green crystal surface pulsing with energy patterns that seemed to respond to their presence. Amanda had noticed that the gate became more active when humans were nearby, but she hadn't shared this observation with the aliens. The control interface is definitely designed for human physiology, she explained as her team gathered around the base of the gate. Watch what happens when I place my hand on this symbol cluster. The moment her palm touched the crystal surface, new symbols appeared around the ring. They were different from the ones the aliens had seen, more complex and arranged in patterns that seemed to shift and change as they watched. Jake whistled softly. That didn't happen during any of the alien inspections. Because it won't respond to them, Amanda said. I think the architects built in species-specific access controls. The basic transportation functions work for anyone, but the advanced systems require specific neural patterns. Pete Johnson was monitoring the energy readings. Amanda, the power output just increased by 30%. Whatever you did, the gate likes it. Over the following days, Amanda's team made discovery after discovery. The gate wasn't just a transportation device. It was a control hub for a network that spanned the galaxy. More importantly, it contained historical records that painted a very different picture of the architects than the aliens had suggested. Look at this, Amanda said during their 5th day of research. She had learned to interface directly with the gate's memory systems, and the information flowing through her mind was staggering. The architects didn't disappear voluntarily. They were driven out by the ancestors of the species currently claiming rights to their technology. The Karathis, Zephyrians, and Nexus Collective were part of an alliance that considered the architects a threat to their expansion. I'm suggesting something much more significant than that, Amanda replied. I think we could turn the entire gate network into a weapon. President Walsh looked around the room at the faces of world leaders who had suddenly realized their species might not be as helpless as they had thought. Dr. Brooks, how long would you need to test your theories? Give me 2 weeks with a team of volunteers, and I'll know what we're capable of. The Chinese representative, Lu Wei, raised a concern. The aliens will be monitoring our activities. How do we conduct this research without revealing what we're doing? Commander Jake Mitchell, also participating from Europa, answered that question. The aliens are arrogant. They've positioned their fleets to watch our ships and communications, but they're not paying attention to normal mining operations. We can disguise research as routine maintenance work. President Walsh made her decision quickly. Dr. Brooks, you have your 2 weeks. General Scott, I want contingency plans for every scenario, including the possibility that the aliens discover what we're doing before we're ready. And if they do discover us, asked the German representative, then we find out whether humanity deserves its place among the stars. President Walsh replied. Back on Europa, Amanda assembled her research team in the deepest part of the mining complex, as far from alien sensors as possible. The team included Jake Mitchell, Pete Johnson, Danny Walsh, and 6 other specialists who had volunteered for what everyone understood was an extremely dangerous assignment. The gate loomed above them as they worked, its blue-green crystal surface pulsing with energy patterns that seemed to respond to their presence. Amanda had noticed that the gate became more active when humans were nearby, but she hadn't shared this observation with the aliens. The control interface is definitely designed for human physiology, she explained as her team gathered around the base of the gate. Watch what happens when I place my hand on this symbol cluster. The moment her palm touched the crystal surface, new symbols appeared around the ring. They were different from the ones the aliens had seen, more complex and arranged in patterns that seemed to shift and change as they watched. Jake whistled softly. That didn't happen during any of the alien inspections. Because it won't respond to them, Amanda said. I think the architects built in species-specific access controls. The basic transportation functions work for anyone, but the advanced systems require specific neural patterns. Pete Johnson was monitoring the energy readings. Amanda, the power output just increased by 30%. Whatever you did, the gate likes it. Over the following days, Amanda's team made discovery after discovery. The gate wasn't just a transportation device. It was a control hub for a network that spanned the galaxy. More importantly, it contained historical records that painted a very different picture of the architects than the aliens had suggested. Look at this, Amanda said during their 5th day of research. She had learned to interface directly with the gate's memory systems, and the information flowing through her mind was staggering. The architects didn't disappear voluntarily. They were driven out by the ancestors of the species, currently claiming rights to their technology. The Karathis, Ephirians, and Nexus Collector were part of an alliance that considered the architects a threat to their expansion. Danny Walsh looked up from his sensor readings. A threat how? The architects believed in free travel and open communication between all species. They built the gate network to connect civilizations and promote cooperation. The other species wanted to use the gates for conquest and control. Jake was studying a tactical display that had appeared on one of the gate's secondary interfaces. According to this, there was a war. The architects were outnumbered, but they had advantages the others didn't expect. What kind of advantages? Pete asked. Amanda's expression was grim as she accessed more of the historical records. They could control the gate network itself. When the Alliance attacked, the architects turned their own transportation system into a weapon. Ships that entered gates expecting to reach their destinations found themselves redirected into empty space or hostile environments. So what happened to them? They realized that using the network as a weapon would destroy it, cutting off transportation for thousands of species who depended on it. Rather than be responsible for that kind of catastrophe, they chose exile. Amanda paused, accessing the final set of records. But before they left, they programmed the network with a failsafe. If their genetic descendants ever rediscovered the gates, the full control systems would reactivate. The room went very quiet as the implications sank in. Jake was the first to speak. Genetic descendants? The architects seeded dozens of worlds with their genetic material before going into exile. Most of those worlds were destroyed during the war, but a few survived. Earth was one of them. Amanda looked around at her team, seeing her own amazement reflected in their faces. We're not just random aliens who found an ancient artifact. We're the children of the people who built it. Danny was checking his calculations frantically. If that's true, and if the other gates are starting to respond to human presence. They are, Amanda confirmed. Every time we've used a Europa gate, it's sent activation signals throughout the network. Gates that have been dormant for thousands of years are coming online. Pete Johnson whistled. No wonder the aliens were so eager to confine us to Earth. They know what's happening. Do they? Jake asked. Or do they just know that something is changing and they're afraid they can't control it? Amanda stood up, her mind still processing the massive amount of information she had accessed. There's only one way to find out. We need to test the network. Test the how? Danny asked. Amanda looked at the gate, its symbols now glowing brightly in response to her presence. We're going to open a connection to one of the dormant gates and see what happens when humans step through. Jake immediately understood the risks. If the aliens detect that, they'll know we're not following their restrictions. If the aliens detect it, Amanda replied, we'd better be ready to prove that humanity didn't survive this long by accepting other people's limitations. She turned to address her entire team. I need volunteers for what might be a one-way trip. We're going to find out if the stories about human stubbornness are true. Every hand in the room went up without hesitation. The first human to step through a gate in thousands of years was Colonel Ben Hayes, and he did it at 4:23 a.m. Europa time on a Thursday morning. Amanda had spent 3 days preparing the connection to what the gate systems identified as Node 47 Alpha, a world the database called Haven 1. Remember, Amanda said as Ben checked his equipment one final time, we have no idea what's on the other side. The gate says the world is habitable and shows signs of civilization, but that data could be thousands of years old. Ben nodded, adjusting his communications gear. Behind him stood 12 Marines and 3 scientists, all volunteers for what everyone understood might be a suicide mission. If we don't report back in 6 hours, seal the connection and pretend this never happened. He stepped through the shimmering barrier of energy and vanished. The world on the other side was beautiful. Ben found himself standing in what looked like a garden, with tall trees that had silver leaves and grass that was deep blue instead of green. The sky was a soft purple color, with 2 small moons visible even in the daylight. This is Hayes, he said into his radio. I'm alive and the environment appears safe. The gravity is slightly lighter than Earth normal, and the air is breathable. Amanda's voice came back clearly. Any signs of life? Ben was about to answer when he heard singing. It was coming from beyond a grove of the silver-leaf trees, a sound like wind chimes mixed with human voices. He signaled for his team to follow as they moved toward the sound. What they found changed everything. The singers were tall, thin humanoids with pale skin that seemed to glow with its own light. They had long white hair that moved as if underwater, and their eyes were large and silver. They wore simple robes made of material that shifted colors as they moved. The most surprising thing was that they didn't seem surprised to see humans. The tallest of the beings approached Ben with graceful steps. When it spoke, its voice was like music, but the words were perfectly clear. You have come at last, children of the architects. We have waited so long for this day. Ben looked at his team, then back at the being. You know who we are? We are the Valdani, and we remember the old songs. The architects told us that one day their children would walk between worlds again, and the ancient wrongs would be made right. The being, who introduced herself as singer Lyria, led the humans to a city that was unlike anything they had ever seen. The buildings seemed to grow from the ground itself, spiraling upward in organic curves. Everything was made of the same material as the trees, and the entire city seemed to be alive. Your people built this? Ben asked as they walked through streets filled with Valdani, going about their daily lives. We built it in partnership with your ancestors, Singer Lyria explained. The architects taught us to work with living materials, to create homes that breathe and grow. It was a paradise. Asked Dr. Sarah Kim, one of the scientists on Ben's team. Singer Lyria's expression grew sad. Until the Karathi came. They claimed this world as part of their empire and demanded tribute. When we refused, they destroyed half our city and enslaved our people. Ben felt anger rising in his chest. The Karathi are still here? They come every season to collect workers and resources. They take our young people to work in their mines and factories. We have no weapons to resist them. The Valdani showed the humans through their city, pointing out the damage from Karathi raids and the empty spaces where buildings had once stood. It was clear that this had once been a much larger civilization, reduced to a fraction of its original size by years of oppression. How many of your people are left? Dr. Kim asked. Perhaps 50,000 on this world, Singer Lyria replied. There were once millions. That evening, as Ben's team prepared to return to Europa with their report. Singer Lyria shared something that made the Colonel's blood run cold. The Karathi believe they have found the source of the old gate network. They have been bringing ships and equipment to what they call the control world. They plan to use the ancient technology to expand their empire throughout the galaxy. Do you know where this control world is? Singer Lyria nodded. The gate here still remembers its connections. I can show you the path through the network. Ben immediately understood the implications. Amanda, he said into his radio, you need to hear this. When Amanda learned about the Karathi plans, she realized that humanity was facing a much bigger threat than they had imagined. The aliens weren't just trying to control one gate. They were attempting to take over the entire network. We need more information, she told Ben. Can the Valdani help us access other worlds? Over the following week, Ben's team made contact with civilizations on 7 different worlds. The story was the same everywhere. Advanced species that had been reduced to slavery or near extinction by the 3 alien powers that now claim control over the gates. On a desert world called Pyrian, they found the thermal, silicon-based beings who could survive in temperatures that would melt steel. The Zephyrians had enslaved them to work in plasma refineries, harvesting energy from the world's unstable core. On an ocean world designated Aquos, they discovered the Deep Singers, aquatic beings with incredible computational abilities. The Nexus Collective had turned them into living computers, forcing them to process data for the Collective's massive information networks. Every world told the same story. The descendants of species who had worked alongside the architects were now slaves to the very civilizations that had driven their creators into exile. But Amanda's team also made another discovery. The moment humans stepped onto each world, dormant architect technology began activating. Defense systems came online, communication networks re-established connections, and ancient knowledge became accessible again. It's like the entire network has been waiting for us, Amanda explained to President Walsh during a secure communication. The architects didn't just disappear. They left their technology in sleep mode until their descendants could reclaim it. What kind of technology are we talking about? The president asked. Defensive systems that could protect entire star systems. Communication networks that operate faster than any known physics should allow. And construction systems that could build or rebuild entire civilizations. Amanda paused, accessing the latest data from the Gate network. Madam President, we could liberate every enslaved world in this part of the galaxy. The architects built their network to connect and protect species, not to enable conquest. If we activate the full system, the 3 alien fleets will try to stop us, President Walsh observed. Yes, but they won't be facing just humanity anymore. Every species we've contacted is ready to fight for their freedom. They've been waiting centuries for this chance. Jake Mitchell had been monitoring alien communications from Europa. Amanda, we have a problem. The alien fleets have detected increased gate activity. They're starting to ask questions. How long before they figure out what we're doing? Maybe days, maybe hours. Amanda looked at the gate, its crystal surface now glowing brightly with energy patterns that indicated connections to dozens of other worlds. She thought about Singer Lyria and her people, about the thermal working in conditions that would kill any other species, about the Deep Singers forced to serve as living machines. Then we don't wait anymore, she decided. Jake, send a message to President Walsh. Tell her it's time. Time for what? Amanda's smile was determined as she placed her hand on the gate's control interface. Time to show 3 arrogant civilizations what happens when you try to cage the children of the architects. The gate's energy output spiked as Amanda accessed the network's primary command functions. Around the galaxy, gates that had been dormant for millennia suddenly blazed to life. On dozens of worlds, enslaved species looked up at the sky as ancient defense systems activated, and voices they had heard only in legends began speaking through communication systems that had been silent for thousands of years. The liberation of the galaxy was about to begin, and it would start with 3 alien fleets discovering that the primitive humans they had tried to contain were about to turn their own technology against them. The network awakening began at exactly 11:47 a.m. Europa time, and within minutes, alarms were screaming aboard every ship in the 3 alien fleets. War leader Grax was reviewing attack plans when his sensor officer called out in panic. Commander, energy readings from the human gate have increased by 800%. On the bridge of the Nexus vessel, Processing Unit 7742 observed the same phenomenon with mechanical interest. This development was not predicted in our calculations. Query, are the humans attempting to overload their gate? Elder Song of Distant Stars felt the change differently than the others. As a Zephyrian, she was naturally sensitive to the life energies that flowed through all things. The sensation washing over her now was like standing in the path of an avalanche. Something is very wrong, she whispered to her navigation officer. The gate is not malfunctioning. It is awakening. Amanda stood in the center of the Europa facility, her hand pressed against the gate's primary control interface. Information flowed through her mind at an incredible rate as the network responded to her commands. She could sense gates activating across the galaxy, feel the liberation messages being transmitted to enslaved worlds, and monitor the defensive systems coming online. Amanda, Jake called from his monitoring station, all 3 alien fleets are moving toward us. They'll be in weapons range in 20 minutes. Good, Amanda replied, her eyes still closed as she communicated with the network. Let them come. Jake, open a channel to all human personnel. It's time they understood what they're really dealing with. Her voice went out over every human communication system in the solar system, reaching Earth, the defense fleet, and the mining station simultaneously. This is Dr. Amanda Brooks, speaking to all human forces. What I'm about to tell you will sound impossible, but our lives depend on understanding the truth. She paused, accessing the historical records flowing through the network. Humanity is not a young species that accidentally discovered alien technology. We are the genetic descendants of the architects, the builders of the Gate Network. Our ancestors created this technology to connect civilizations and promote peace throughout the galaxy. On Earth, President Walsh listened with growing amazement. In space, Captain Hayes felt pieces clicking into place as he realized why the aliens have been so eager to contain humanity. The 3 species now claiming control over our gate are the same ones who drove our ancestors into exile thousands of years ago, Amanda continued. They have spent centuries using architect technology to enslave the very species our ancestors tried to protect. She opened her eyes, and Jake was startled to see that they were now glowing with the same blue-green light as the gate. But the architects were clever. They programmed the network to recognize their descendants. Every gate we activate, every world we contact, strengthens our connection to the system our ancestors built. War leader Grax heard the human transmission and roared his fury. Impossible. The architects had no descendants. We made sure of that. But even as he spoke, his sensor officer was reporting massive energy spikes throughout Karathi territory. Gates that had been dark for millennia were suddenly blazing with power, and defensive systems were activating on worlds that Karathi had conquered centuries ago. On Pyrian, the desert world where the thermal had been enslaved, ancient shield generators suddenly came to life. The Zephyrian overseers found themselves trapped inside energy barriers, while the silicon-based natives walked free for the first time in 300 years. The lead thermal, a being called Heatsinger Vorth, felt the knowledge flowing into his mind through the awakened network. He understood now what his people had lost, and what they could become again. Brothers and sisters. He broadcast the thermal everywhere. The children of the architects have returned. The time of slavery is over. On Aquos, the ocean world, the deep singers felt the change like a tide of liberation washing through their minds. The Nexus implants that had controlled them for generations suddenly went quiet, and for the first time in centuries, they could think their own thoughts. The eldest of the deep singers, Wave Rider Naya, accessed the awakening network and laughed with joy as she realized the truth. The strange bipedal aliens who had been stepping through gates were not conquerors or explorers. They were family. Singer Lyrion Haven, one felt the change as well. The Valdani city began to reshape itself as architect construction systems came online. Buildings grew taller and stronger, defensive systems emerged from the ground, and communication arrays reached out to connect with other liberated worlds. The prophecy is fulfilled, she sang to her people. The children have returned to free us all. Back on Europa, Amanda was coordinating the liberation of dozens of worlds simultaneously. But she was also watching the tactical display as the three alien fleets closed in on their position. Amanda, Lisa Harper called from the mining station's command center. "We're about to have company. What do we do when they start shooting?" Amanda smiled, accessing a part of the network that the aliens had never known existed. "We show them what their ancestors tried so hard to destroy." The space around Europa suddenly filled with new contacts. Not ships, but something far more impressive. Ancient architect defense platforms materialized out of dimensional storage, their crystalline hulls gleaming with the same blue-green energy as the gates. There were hundreds of them, each one the size of a small moon. They had been waiting in folded space for thousands of years, ready to respond when the architect's children finally came home. War leader Grack stared at his sensors in disbelief. Where did they come from? There was nothing there a moment ago. The answer came from the largest defense platform, in a voice that spoke in perfect Karathi. "We are the final guardians, left by the architects to protect their children. You have trespassed in the birthplace of our Maker's heirs. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." But Grax was a warrior, and warriors don't retreat. All ships, attack formation. Destroy those platforms. The Karathi fleet opened fire with everything they had. Plasma cannons, fusion missiles, and energy weapons that could crack planets struck the nearest defense platform. The ancient shields absorbed every shot without even flickering. The platform's response was swift and devastating. A single beam of blue-green energy lanced out and touched the Karathi flagship. The massive warship simply ceased to exist, not destroyed but unmade at the molecular level. Elder Song of Distant Stars watched the demonstration with growing horror. "We cannot fight this," she told her fleet commanders. "This is a technology that our ancestors feared." But the Nexus Collective was not easily deterred. Processing Unit 7742 calculated the odds and determined that overwhelming force might still succeed. All vessels will combine fire on a single target. Probability of success increases with concentrated assault. 100 Nexus ships focused their weapons on one defense platform. The ancient shields held for several seconds, then began to weaken under sustained bombardment. Amanda felt the platform's distress through her connection to the network. Without hesitation, she channeled more power from the gate network, strengthening the shields and providing the platforms with tactical data they needed. "You want to see what the architects were really capable of?" she said to Jake. "Watch this." The defense platforms began to move, not through normal space, but by folding reality around themselves. They appeared inside the Nexus formation, too close to the alien ships to effectively target them. The platform's weapons carved through the Nexus fleet, like a knife through paper. In minutes, half the Nexus ships were gone. The remainder tried to retreat, but the platform simply followed them, appearing wherever the fleeing ships tried to go. Elder Song of Distant Stars made the only decision that made sense. "All Zephyrian vessels, stand down. We surrender." War leader Grax, watching his allies retreat and his own fleet being systematically destroyed, finally understood what his ancestors had really faced. These weren't just advanced weapons. This was technology that treated the laws of physics as suggestions rather than rules. This is War leader Grax to the human forces. He broadcasts on all frequencies. "We request terms of surrender." Amanda smiled, feeling the liberation spreading across the galaxy as more worlds broke free from their oppression. "Terms? Here are our terms. War leader, you will release every slave, abandon every conquered world, and return to your own territory. The age of conquest is over." She paused, accessing the network's vast database of information about each species. "The galaxy is big enough for all of us, but only if we share it as equals. The architects tried to teach that lesson once before. We won't make the mistake of being too gentle this time." The three alien fleets began their withdrawal from the Sol system within the hour. Behind them, they left a transformed galaxy where dozens of species were tasting freedom for the first time in centuries, and where ancient technology was awakened to serve the purposes it had originally been designed for. But Amanda knew this was only the beginning. There were thousands of worlds still under alien control, and the network was vast beyond imagination. The liberation of the galaxy would take time, but humanity had something their ancestors had lacked. They had learned from history, and they were not alone. The children of the architect had come home, and they intended to stay. 3 months after the Battle of Europa, the galaxy was in chaos, and the 3 alien powers were finally taking the threat seriously. War leader Grax stood before the combined council of species in the Karathi capital city of Ironhold, a massive fortress built on a world of perpetual storms. Around him sat representatives from dozens of military species, all united by a single purpose: the complete destruction of humanity and their liberation movement. The situation grows worse daily, Grax reported to the assembled war leaders. 17 more worlds have declared independence. The humans have established what they call liberation zones throughout our territory, and our fleets cannot penetrate their defensive networks. Commander Vex of the Saurian Dominion, a species of ruthless reptilian warriors, leaned forward in his seat. How many ships have we lost attempting to reclaim these worlds? Over 3,000 vessels across all our fleets, Grax admitted. The ancient defense platforms appear wherever we attack, and they can destroy our largest ships with single shots. Elder Song of Distant Stars participated in the council through a living communication node, her image projected from the Zephyrian core worlds. The humans have proven they can access architect technology, but they are still a young species. We must find a way to turn their own power against them. Processing Unit 7742 spoke through multiple speakers placed around the chamber. Analysis indicates that the human neural interface with the gate network requires significant energy and concentration. If we can disrupt their connection, the defensive systems may become vulnerable. The plan that emerged from the council was simple in concept but massive in scope. The 3 powers would combine their remaining fleets into a single overwhelming force. Instead of attacking individual liberated worlds, they would strike directly at Earth itself, forcing the humans to defend their homeworld while cutting them off from the gate network. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Walsh was dealing with her own challenges. The rapid expansion of human influence throughout the galaxy had created diplomatic, logistical, and military problems that no government in history had ever faced. We have 43 species requesting admission to the Liberation Alliance, reported Foreign Secretary David Park during the morning briefing. Each one has different needs, capabilities, and cultural requirements. Admiral Susan Clark, who had replaced Captain Hayes as commander of the expanded Earth Fleet, added her concerns. Our forces are spread across 200 star systems. If the alien powers coordinate a major counterattack, we might not be able to respond effectively. President Walsh studied the holographic display showing human and allied forces throughout the galaxy. Ships and personnel were scattered across vast distances, connected only by the gate network that Amanda controlled from Europa. "What's Dr. Brooks' assessment of our defensive capabilities?" she asked. General Scott, who had been coordinating with Amanda's team, provided the update. She says the network can handle a lot, but it has limits. The more gates she keeps active simultaneously, the more strain it puts on her and the system. If we face attacks on multiple fronts, she might not be able to maintain all our defensive positions. The president made her decision quickly. Recall 30% of our forces to Sol system defense. I know it means reducing our presence. The Battle of Sol began at dawn, Earth time, when the largest fleet in galactic history opened fire on the ancient Guardian platforms defending humanity's home system. War leader Grax commanded the assault from his flagship, the Bloodforge, leading 12,000 ships in a coordinated attack that should have overwhelmed any defense. Plasma cannons, fusion missiles, and exotic energy weapons filled space with deadly light as it combined alien forces through everything they had at the crystalline platforms. For a moment, it seemed like the sheer volume of firepower might succeed. Several Guardian platforms flickered under sustained bombardment, their ancient shields finally showing stress after millennia of waiting. But Amanda Brooks was no longer just interfacing with the gate network. She had become part of it. Standing in the center of the Europa facility, her entire body glowed with the blue-green energy of the architects. She felt every shot fired, every platform struck, every ship moving through the battle space. The network's vast consciousness flowed through her mind, showing her possibilities that normal physics said were impossible. "Jake," she said without opening her eyes, Tell Admiral Clark to pull our ships back. They're not going to need them." Jake Mitchell watched in amazement as the Guardian platforms began to respond. Instead of simply absorbing the alien fire, they started to move through space in patterns that hurt the eyes to follow. Ships that fired at one platform found their shots striking their own allies, as space itself seemed to bend around the ancient weapons. War Leader Grax roared in frustration as the sensors showed impossible readings. How are they doing this? Energy cannot curve through space like that. His science officer, a brilliant Karathi named Subleader Vrak, studied the data with growing horror. "Commander, they're not bending energy. They're bending space-time itself. They're treating reality like a tool." The ancient Guardians' counterattack began slowly, almost gently. Single beams of blue-green light reached out from the platforms, touching alien ships with what looked like caresses rather than weapons fire. But everywhere the light touched, ships simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, not vaporized. Simply removed from reality as if they had never been built. Elder Song of Distant Stars felt a change in the fundamental forces flowing through space, and knew they were witnessing something beyond warfare. "This is not battle," she whispered to her crew. "This is creation and uncreation. We are fighting beings who can rewrite the laws of existence." But the Alien Alliance had prepared for this possibility. Processing Unit 7742 activated the interference arrays the Nexus Collective had built, flooding the Sol system with transmission patterns designed to disrupt the connection between humanity and the Gate network. For a moment, it worked. Amanda staggered as the network connection wavered, and several Guardian platforms flickered and went dark. "Now!" Grax commanded. "All ships, full attack while their defenses are down." Thousands of alien vessels surged forward, their weapons blazing. They made it halfway to Earth before Amanda smiled and showed them why the Architect Network had survived for thousands of years despite every attempt to destroy it. The interference patterns the aliens were using had indeed disrupted some connections, but they had also activated dormant systems throughout the galaxy that had been waiting for this exact situation. Gates that had been sleeping in remote star systems suddenly blazed alive, pouring defensive energy into the Sol system through connections the aliens had never known existed. "You made a mistake," Amanda said, her voice carrying across space through the network itself. "You assumed we were using technology we had built. We're not. We're using technology that built us." The true scope of the Architect legacy revealed itself as ancient weapons emerged from hidden dimensions throughout the galaxy. Not just Guardian platforms, but reality-shaping devices that could remake entire star systems, consciousness transfer networks that connected every liberated world, and defensive systems that existed in folded space where normal attacks couldn't reach them. On Haven 1, Singer Lyria felt the network's full activation and began to sing the Song of Awakening, a melody that her people had preserved for generations without understanding its true purpose. Her voice joined with those of deep singers on Aquos, heat singers among the thermal, and dozens of other species throughout the Liberation Zone. The song was a key, encoded in harmonic frequencies that resonated with Architect technology. As it spread through the network, ancient systems that had been dormant since the original war began to reactivate throughout the galaxy. War Leader Grax watched in disbelief as the sensors detected massive energy signatures appearing in Karathi space, hundreds of light years from the battle. What is happening to our core worlds? The answer came from Subleader Vrak, his voice filled with awe and terror. "Commander, the planets themselves are changing. Ancient structures are rising from the ground on every world we've conquered. It's like the planets are rejecting our presence. Throughout Karathi territory, worlds that have been enslaved for centuries were reshaping themselves. Mountains moved to create natural fortresses for liberated populations. Oceans redirected themselves to flood military installations. The planets themselves had become weapons in the hands of the Architect's children. The same phenomenon was occurring throughout Zephyrian and Nexus space. Worlds that had seemed dead and empty suddenly revealed themselves to be vast Architect installations, camouflaged and waiting for the right moment to activate. Elder Song of Distant Stars understood what was happening before the others. "We never conquered these worlds," she said to her council. "We were allowed to think we had conquered them. Every world we took, every system we claimed, They were already part of the Architect Network. We've been living inside their creation all along. In the Sol system, the battle was reaching its climax. The alien fleet had been reduced to less than half of the original strength, but War Leader Grax was determined to complete his mission even if it meant the destruction of his own forces. All remaining ships, target Earth directly, he commanded. If we cannot win, we will make sure they understand the price of defying us. But Amanda had been waiting for this moment. As thousands of alien ships turned toward Earth, she activated the master protocol hidden deep within the Architect Network. The gate on Europa blazed with energy that could be seen from orbit as every connection in the galaxy suddenly linked together into a single, unified system. Space around Earth shimmered and changed. The planet disappeared, not destroyed but relocated to a pocket dimension where it would be safe from any attack. In its place, a message appeared in letters of light large enough to be read from anywhere in the solar system. The children of the architects offer you one final choice. Withdraw now and return freedom to all the worlds you have enslaved, or face the full consequences of your actions. War Leader Grax stared at the impossible sight of an entire world simply ceasing to exist, then made the decision that would determine the fate of his civilization. Continue the attack. Fire on everything. If we cannot rule the galaxy, then let no one rule it. Amanda felt his decision through the network and sighed with regret. The architects had hoped their descendants would find a peaceful solution, but some species only understood strength. What happened next would be remembered in galactic history as the hour of judgment. Every ship in the alien fleet found itself surrounded by Guardian platforms.